For centuries, Africa's vast riches fueled the engines of empires. Its soil bled of oil, gold, uranium, cocoa, timber, and countless other treasures. Yet the people of that land were left shackled in poverty, dependence, and despair while far away. Capitals thrived, and the cruel paradox echoed across generations that the ground richest in minerals bore the poorest children. But today that story is shifting in ways that make the old guardians of power nervous, because the tide has turned, not as a trickle, but as a sweeping wave of defiance, dignity, and self-determination, and across the continent leaders are rising. To say enough, we will not forever be the warehouse of the world. We will not forever sell for pennies what you sell back to us at a fortune. And from Ghana to Uganda, from Gabon to Mozambique, from Niger to Burkina Faso, a map of trade itself is being redrawn. And in more than 10 nations, the same declaration rings like thunder: sovereignty is not for sale. And the question that rattles the global order is no longer whether Africa can resist, but whether the world can adapt. And so the spotlight falls first on Ghana, where centuries of gold extraction enriched others, while Ghanaians watched wealth slip away. But today, Accra insists that at least 20% of refined gold must be sold to the central bank itself. Rule that locks value at home, strengthens reserves, and weakens dependence on foreign currencies. Then eyes turn eastward to Uganda, where in 2021, a bold government stunned markets by banning raw exports of coffee and tea, demanding instead that beans be roasted, packaged, and exported as finished goods, a move that not only lifted farmers from cycles of underpayment, but forced global coffee giants to adapt to Kampala's rules. And further south, Gabon and Mozambique wield timber as a weapon of sovereignty. Once their logs fed Europe's luxury industries for cheap, now by banning the export of unprocessed wood, they forced the birth of carpentry, furniture, and flooring. Industries at home, each log becoming not just lumber, but jobs, pride, and the foundations of dignity. And Guinea carried the logic to food itself, refusing to export rice, maize, and yams while its own children faced hunger, declaring to the world that sovereignty begins at the dinner table. And in Niger, uranium long siphoned away at bargain. Prices to keep the lights of Paris glowing was suddenly restricted, shaking the very foundations of Europe's nuclear power grid, forcing France to confront the reality that 70% of its electricity was tied to a Sahel nation it had dismissed as poor. And then Namibia and the Democratic Republic of Congo stepped into the heart of the future by saying to the world, if you want cobalt, lithium, and copper for your electric cars and renewable grids, then invest here, refine here, build here, because the clean energy of tomorrow must be built with Africa. Not at Africa's expense, and Zimbabwe joined by banning raw chrome exports. Ivory Coast by curbing raw cocoa to nurture its own chocolate industry. Each policy striking directly at centuries-old supply chains that treated Africa as raw material. And nothing more. And yet the most striking symbol today is found in landlocked Burkina Faso, where under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, resource nationalism has hardened into an uncompromising creed. And in 2024, a revised mining code increased the state's free share from 10 to 15%. A small figure on paper, but a giant leap in sovereignty. Because for the first time, Ouagadougou is not begging for crumbs at the table, but holding a stronger hand in negotiations, and through the state-owned Soramib. Key mines such as Bonga and Wagnon are being taken out of the grip of foreign operators and folded into national control. And above all stands the gold refinery approved in 2023, a 150-ton capacity giant, the first in Burkina Faso's history, designed to process 400 kilograms of gold a day, not just metal but destiny, because for the first time gold dug from Burkinabe soil will be refined on Burkinabe soil, bars stamped with the nation's seal, creating thousands of jobs, inspiring millions of hearts, and reminding the world that this small, Landlocked nation will no longer watch its dust be stolen to build foreign wealth, but will mold its own future. And Traoré's policy is not mere economics. It is defiance. It is a declaration that our resources will not be siphoned off to fatten foreign treasuries while our own people starve. And in the Sahel, a land long spoken of only in terms of conflict and drought, such defiance is nothing short of revolutionary, because it ties economic sovereignty to political survival, dignity to development, resources to responsibility. And if Ghana planted the seed and Niger watered it, then Burkina Faso has raised the flag. A small, fragile country, reshaping the narrative of power, wielding gold not as trinket for export, but as a weapon of sovereignty. And yet the question now burns hotter than ever. When a nation dares to turn its natural wealth into a shield of dignity, will the world respect the shield or seek to break it? Because history shows that whenever the weak refuse to bow, pressure follows, sanctions, destabilization, and even assassination attempts like those recently whispered around Traore himself. And while Western media shouts alarm about instability, nationalism, and risk, African voices roar back with pride, dignity, and justice. Crowds in Bamako, Niamey, and Ouagadougou painting murals of their leaders as guardians of sovereignty. Hashtags uniting youth, songs and rallies turning economic policy into a movement of hearts. And yet, amid the pride, sober voices warn that sovereignty must serve citizens, not slogans, because nationalization without transparency risks corruption. And if wealth is moved merely from foreign elites to domestic elites, the people will see no change. And so civil groups demand that revenue build schools, hospitals, and irrigation instead of palaces, and the burden on leaders is heavy. For revolutions are not judged by beginnings, but by endurance. And so this wave of resource nationalism, stretching from cocoa to uranium, from timber to lithium, from gold to food, is not merely a chapter of economics. It is the hinge of history itself. A storm where Africa no longer whispers but commands, no longer bends but stands. And as the applause grows, so too does the pressure. Because the shield of sovereignty is being tested by the sword of global power, and the outcome will decide not just the fate of one nation, but the dignity of a continent long denied its due.